The email from my sister sat unopened in my inbox, its subject line glaring at me, urgent business opportunity at Westfield Plaza. I took a slow sip of my espresso, enjoying the view from my penthouse office overlooking Manhattan's retail district. Below, thousands of shoppers streamed in and out of the stores that secretly belonged to my company. I'm Sophia Chen, though my retail empire operates under the name Sophia Pierce, my grandmother's maiden name. At 34, I own the largest private retail development company in New York, though my family still thinks I run a single boutique in Brooklyn. Miss Pierce. My assistant's voice came through the intercom. Your mother called again. She wants to know if you're attending your sister Victoria's store opening next month. I smiled, finally clicking on Victoria's email. My sister, who'd spent years mocking my tiny boutique, was now desperately trying to open her own luxury clothing store. And she had no idea that her application needed my approval. Tell her I'll check my schedule, I replied, scanning Victoria's message. It was exactly what I'd expected. A poorly conceived business plan wrapped in fake sisterly affection. Dear Sophia, hope you're doing well with your little shop. Marcus and I are opening an upscale boutique at Westfield Plaza, and I thought you might want to learn from our expertise. Maybe pick up some tips to grow your business? Let me know if you'd like to meet for coffee. I can share some industry insights. Love, Victoria. Industry insights. From a woman who'd never worked retail a day in her life. Her only qualification was marrying Marcus, a self-proclaimed business genius, who'd been living off his trust fund while pretending to be an entrepreneur. I closed the email and pulled up the real application for their store. Marcus had submitted it last week, a proposal for elite fashion house at Westfield Plaza, one of my flagship properties. The business plan was a joke, all flash and no substance. Exactly like my sister and her husband. My phone buzzed. Mom again. I picked up, already knowing what she'd say. Sophia, why haven't you congratulated your sister? This is such an exciting opportunity for her. Hello to you too, Mom. I shuffled through some acquisition papers on my desk. I've been busy with work. Busy? With that little boutique of yours. She sighed heavily. You know, if you'd gone to business school like Victoria, you could be doing something meaningful with your life. I glanced at the Wall Street Journal on my desk, where an article about my latest acquisition was prominently featured, under my Pierce name, of course. I managed to keep myself occupied. Well, you should come to the store opening. Victoria's invited all the important people in retail. Maybe you could network, make some connections to help your shop. Important people in retail. I suppressed a laugh, thinking of the desperate messages Marcus had been sending to my company's leasing office. I'll think about it, I said, ending the call before she could continue. My assistant buzzed in again. Ms. Pierce? The board meeting for the Westfield Plaza expansion starts in 10 minutes. I gathered my materials, thinking about how different my life was from what my family imagined. They pictured me struggling with a small boutique when in reality I controlled over 30 major shopping centers across the country. The conference room was already full when I arrived. Development directors, architects, and financial advisors, all waiting for my decisions about the plaza's future. Including, though they didn't know it yet, the fate of Victoria's store. Let's begin with new tenant applications, I said, taking my seat at the head of the table. I believe we have several potential luxury retailers to consider. My retail director, James, pulled up the first presentation. Elite Fashion House, proposed by Marcus and Victoria Sterling. They're requesting prime location in the East Wing. Their financials? I asked, though I already knew the answer. Shaky at best, James replied. They're relying heavily on projected sales with no real backing. Their business plan is optimistic. Optimistic is generous, I murmured, remembering Victoria's constant jabs about my lack of business acumen. The meeting continued, but my mind wandered to how this all began. 10 years ago I had indeed started with a single boutique in Brooklyn. But unlike Victoria, who saw retail as a way to play entrepreneur with her husband's money, I'd studied the industry from the ground up. My little shop had turned a profit in its first year. Then I opened a second location and a third. I reinvested everything, living modestly while my sister flaunted her designer lifestyle. When the opportunity came to buy my first shopping center, I was ready. But my family never noticed. They were too busy bragging about Victoria's MBA, her marriage to Marcus, her connections in high society. Every family dinner became an exercise in enduring their condescension. "Still working at that little store?" Victoria would ask, examining her manicure. "You know, Marcus could help you understand basic business principles." "The retail industry is complicated," Marcus would lecture, despite never having run a successful business. "You need proper education to succeed." Even last Christmas, when I'd closed a billion-dollar acquisition, they'd been more interested in Victoria's plans to revolutionize luxury retail. A knock at the conference room door interrupted my thoughts. My assistant entered with an urgent message. Victoria had arrived at my boutique in Brooklyn, unannounced. "She's demanding to speak with you," Jessica said. "Says it's about her store application." I checked the security feed on my tablet. There was Victoria, dressed in head-to-toe designer labels, looking disdainfully around my carefully curated boutique. "Tell her I'm in a meeting," I said. "She can email me like everyone else." "She's pretty insistent," Jessica hesitated. "Says she wants to offer you a position at her new store. To help you learn the business properly." The room fell silent. My board members, who knew exactly who I was and what I'd built, waited for my response. I smiled, closing my tablet. "Actually, I think it's time for a site visit to the Brooklyn location. James, please continue reviewing the applications. I'll handle this one personally." "Of course, Miss Pierce," he said, a knowing look in his eyes. "Should I continue holding that prime East Wing location?" "No," I replied, standing up. "I think we can mark that space as unavailable. Permanently." The drive to Brooklyn gave me time to think. 4 years I'd kept my success hidden from my family, partly because I enjoyed the irony, partly because I was waiting for the right moment to reveal the truth. Victoria's attempt to establish herself in my territory had just provided that moment. As I pulled up to my boutique, the first property I'd ever owned, I saw Victoria through the window, lecturing my manager about proper retail presentation. Some things never changed. Time to show my sister what proper retail presentation really looked like. I entered my boutique quietly, watching Victoria gesture dramatically as she explained proper merchandising to my manager, Sarah. Sarah caught my eye in the mirror and I gave her a subtle nod. She'd been with me since the beginning and knew exactly who I really was. "The lighting is all wrong," Victoria was saying. "And this display." Honestly, Sophia never did understand luxury retail. "But don't worry, once our store opens at Westfield Plaza, I'll show her how it's really done." "Is that so?" I said softly. Victoria spun around, her designer heels squeaking on the polished floor. "Sophia, finally. I've been trying to reach you about our store." "Yes, I received your email." I moved to the center of the boutique, straightening a display that was actually perfectly arranged. "Something about sharing your expertise?" "Well, yes." She smiled condescendingly. "Marcus and I have been doing extensive research on the luxury market. We have connections, vision, things you could learn from." I checked my phone as it buzzed. A message from James about the board meeting. Another acquisition was moving forward. A $500 million deal that would add 3 more shopping centers to my portfolio. "Tell me about your business plan," I said, sliding my phone back into my pocket. "I'd love to hear about your vision." Victoria brightened, always eager to show off. "We're going to revolutionize luxury retail. Designer brands, personal shopping experiences, VIP events." She pulled out a glossy presentation. "Look at these projections." I glanced at the numbers, fighting back a laugh. The revenue forecasts were pure fantasy, and the operating costs were wildly underestimated. "Interesting," I said mildly. "And your funding?" "Marcus has investors lined up." She waved dismissively. "High-net-worth individuals who understand our potential. Not that you'd understand that level of business." "Oh, I understand business quite well." I walked to the back office, Victoria trailing behind me. "For instance, I understand that your application for Westfield Plaza was rejected this morning." She froze. "How do you know about that?" "The leasing office said the decision wouldn't be made for weeks." "The decision was made today, during a board meeting I just attended." "You attended?" She laughed uncertainly. "Why would you be at a Westfield Plaza board meeting?" I sat down behind my desk, enjoying the moment. "Because, dear sister, I own it." The silence that followed was delicious. "That's impossible," she finally whispered. Westfield Plaza is owned by Pierce Retail Development. Everyone knows that. Yes, I smiled. Pierce Retail Development. Founded by Sophia Pierce, our grandmother's maiden name. I thought it had a nice ring to it. Victoria sank into a chair, her designer purse sliding to the floor. You're lying. You run a boutique. A small, insignificant. I started with a boutique, I corrected her. Then I bought another and another. Then a small shopping center. Then a larger one. I turned my computer monitor toward her, showing my company's portfolio. Now I own 32 major retail properties across the country, including every prime location you and Marcus have tried to lease. The color drained from her face as she scrolled through the properties. But at family dinners you never said. You never asked, I said simply. You were too busy mocking my little shop to notice what I was building. Her phone buzzed. Marcus probably wondering about the store application. She ignored it, still staring at the screen. All those times you offered to teach me about business, I continued. I was closing multi-million-dollar deals. While you were bragging about your MBA, I was building an empire. And now. I pulled up her store application. Now you need my approval to open your little boutique. We'll go somewhere else, she said quickly. Other malls. Like Riverside Center? Hamilton Place. The Grand Plaza. I named the other major shopping centers in the area. I own those too. In fact, I own every prime retail location within 50 miles. Victoria's hands began to shake. Mom and Dad, they don't know? They never bothered to ask. I stood up, straightening my jacket. Too busy bragging about your potential to notice my success. As if on cue, my phone buzzed with another message. The CEO of a major luxury brand wanting to discuss expansion. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have actual business to attend to. Wait. Victoria stood up, desperation creeping into her voice. We can work something out. A partnership maybe? With your connections and our vision. Your vision. I laughed. You mean your fantasy projections and non-existent business plan? The one that assumes 300% growth in the first year with no industry experience. She flushed. Marcus has connections. Marcus has a trust fund and an inflated ego. I cut her off. Neither of which qualifies him to run a successful retail operation. Please, she whispered. We've already told everyone about the store. We've ordered inventory. Perhaps you should have secured the location first. I pressed the intercom. Sarah, please escort my sister out. And Victoria. I smiled. Do give Marcus my regards. I hear he's been quite persistent with our leasing office. After she left, I sat back in my chair thinking about all the family dinners I'd endured. The subtle jabs, the condescending advice, the dismissal of my work. Now they would understand exactly what I'd built while they were busy underestimating me. My phone buzzed again, Mom this time. Sophia. Her voice was shaking. Victoria just called me. She's saying something crazy about you owning shopping centers. Not crazy, Mom. True. I pulled up the Forbes article about my latest acquisition. Would you like me to send you some press coverage? Though you might have seen it already if you'd ever actually asked about my career. But why didn't you tell us? Tell you what? That while you were bragging about Victoria's MBA, I was building a billion-dollar company. That while you were dismissing my little shop, I was becoming one of the most powerful people in retail real estate. Silence on the other end. You know what the funny thing is, Mom? If any of you had shown even a slight interest in my work, you'd have known. My name, my real name, has been in the business news for years. But you were all too busy planning Victoria's imaginary success to notice my actual achievements. We were wrong, she said quietly. Yes, you were. I checked my calendar. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a meeting with actual retail executives who understand the industry. Oh, and Mom? You might want to tell Victoria to cancel her inventory orders. She won't be opening a store in any of my properties. Ever. The next few weeks were entertaining. Marcus tried everything, calling in favors, attempting to meet with my board, even trying to approach me through business contacts. But in the world of retail real estate, my word was law. Victoria's dream of retail success crumbled. Her Instagram posts about the upcoming store opening were quietly deleted. Her boasts about revolutionizing luxury retail faded into embarrassed silence. At the next family dinner, which I attended purely for amusement, the dynamic had shifted dramatically. Gone were the condescending questions about my little shop. Instead, they all sat in uncomfortable silence as I took business calls about multi-million-dollar deals. "So, Sophia," Dad finally ventured, "we've been reading about Pierce retail development. Very impressive." "Thank you," I said, not looking up from my phone. "Though you could have known about it years ago if you'd bothered to ask." "About that," Mom began, but I cut her off. "No need for apologies now. Your approval stopped mattering around the time I bought my 5th shopping center." I stood up, gathering my things. "Now if you'll excuse me, I have a meeting about acquiring another retail chain. You might know it, it's the one Victoria's been trying to get a franchise agreement with." As I left, I heard Victoria burst into tears. Harsh, perhaps. But sometimes success is the best revenge, especially when served in a prime retail location that your critics can't access. I did send them all memberships to my property's VIP shopping program, standard level, not platinum. After all, I wouldn't want them to feel too special. They're just regular customers now, shopping in stores that I own, walking through malls that I control, living in the retail world that I built while they were busy doubting me. And every time they pass by that empty storefront in Westfield Plaza, the one Victoria had dreamed of occupying, they'll remember the sister they underestimated, who now owns not just a little shop, but an empire that determines their shopping destiny. The best revenge, after all, isn't just success. It's success so complete that those who doubted you have to face it every time they want to go shopping.